Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm joining you all from house sitting, and I am in Atlanta. And I am excited to be back to talk to you about a subject that's really near and dear to my heart. I am, as you may know, if you are new to this channel, I am a 15-year Illinois public education educator. I'm a social psychologist, and I started this channel because I thought this would be a great place to create community and to start talking about things that are really important to me and conversations that I've had informally and formally with my colleagues. And so it's a place that I hope will be a safe place and a community for educators and people who care about higher education to come and talk about things that are on their mind. So please, in the comments, if there's something I say that resonates with you, feel free to add it. I will come back and read the comments after the live stream. I was originally creating recorded videos, and what I found is that it was taking me a long time to actually go ahead and go live because of that. And so I'm very interested in making sure that I share content every week and to build up a little bit of a consistency. And so that's why I am going to switch to this format of going live on Thursdays. Right now, it'll be Thursdays, and it may be a different schedule eventually. So, what's my topic today? So, my topic today is this concept called self-efficacy. And I was doing this idea of like a word of a week. Really, what I want to do is go deeper into some concepts. So, it may just be like a topic for a period of episodes. So, for example, this particular topic came to my mind because I was watching a lot of people talk about, the self doubt and the imposter syndrome that they were feeling, not just in teaching, but in any career. And even if you've been in a career for a while, there might be a situation where you have a new role or new responsibility where you begin to doubt your ability to do that one thing. And so it's a task specific concept. And so I want to get into that a little bit. And at the end, if you would, of this video, I want to be able to talk about things that institutions can do, administrators can do to build self-efficacy and how that can help with retention of academic professionals. So as I said, this issue really is related to retention. So one of the issues that I see in higher education, people are either wishing they could quit, talking about quitting, or they've already quit and they're so glad they're quit. And especially on social media, you'll see a lot of educators talking about why they left teaching. And it's not just in higher education, it's actually in all levels of education. And I think in public education in particular, we have been hit hard by not only low enrollment, but lack of funding, and the fact that we have, in my opinion, and I don't know if there's statistics around this, we are aging as a profession. That's not to say there aren't lots of new, bright, qualified people coming into the profession, but higher education is not the type of career that it was a generation ago or two generations ago. And by that, I meant that people really looked up to getting an education. People looked at educators as role models. There was a lot of respect in society for people who were going into this type of work. And the salary that you made, you weren't going to get rich on it, but you were certainly going to be able to pay your bills, save for college, your children's education, and retire and feel comfortable and not worry about things. And so it could be that, a lot of careers are facing that. But to have invested time in 3 or 4 degrees, as many of us did, and have student loan debt in excess of $50,000, I didn't even have to pay for my first 2 degrees. And I have a 6-figure student loan debt when I finished. So the idea of quitting and walking away from that is really kind of scary. Like things have to be bad if people are quitting. So I'm talking about this because I believe that self-efficacy is one of many strategies that I want to have deeper discussion about why it's related to people deciding that they should leave. It's sort of like when someone is in a cycle with a mood disorder, say depression or anxiety, you often cannot see clearly, and therefore you're making decisions in that. So I don't want to equate the two, because obviously having a significant mood disorder is a bigger issue than, doubting your abilities in your job. So, higher education is changing. I have notes here that I'm reading on my iPad. Higher education is changing, and self efficacy is a word that you may not be familiar with. It's very similar and often misconstrued with self confidence. However, there's a difference because in self confidence, you could be a person who has a lot of self confidence because it's just saying that you believe in your abilities in a generalized way. You've been successful in relationships, you've been successful as a parent, you've been successful maybe purchasing a home or a car, paying off a credit card, losing weight, gaining muscle, whatever life goal you have, getting a job, finishing a degree. All these are things that would give you generalized um, self confidence because you've been successful in other areas. So, what happens with self efficacy is it's really related to your belief in your ability to accomplish a specific task. And in this case, a task that's required for you to continue to be successful in your job. Case in point, pandemic, online education. Even people who were already online educators were suddenly thrust into teaching online in more classes and in classes with students who were unprepared for the work of being an online student. It's one thing to teach online students who are selecting to be online students. It's another thing to teach online students who have never done online or they've done it and they hated it. Um, and I think there are certain things that you might teach, in my case, where the way you've set up the class and the pedagogy that you're using lends itself more easily to an online situation. And then being able to prepare and practice and feel confident. So if you're a person who in general has self-confidence, but yet you are thrust into a situation where you're having to be flexible beyond reasonable, expectation or in a different way than you have in the past, then it's going to be a possibility of self doubt. So, self efficacy is this concept that came from this guy named Albert Bandura, a psychologist in the 1970s. And he basically says it has to do with your ability to really think, to care about your performance and the amount of influence that you have that's related to your performance. So, one of the things, for example, I'm going to continue with the example of online education. If you have been successful teaching in the classroom, but you're not successful the first time or the second time or the third time teaching an online class, then it definitely affects your ability to be perceived by yourself and by others as a high performer. And of course, that has, other ripple effects. So when we think about teaching specifically, um, that self doubt leads to a hit, not only in your performance, but in your perception of your ability to perform. Now, one of the things that is also going on to get away from online teaching is the fact that because of lower enrollments, oftentimes faculty are being required to teach things that they wouldn't ordinarily teach, or to teach things at the last minute that they're not prepared to teach that maybe they haven't taught in a long time. And so that also means that when it comes to your teaching, if you see yourself as a high performer and now you're being asked to do something in a different way, that modality is going to cause you to be, again, perceived by yourself and others as not as effective as you have been in the past. So, one of the things we know is that we can boost self efficacy in whatever the specific task is. And I just want to go over a couple of those. One of the ways to achieve a certain base level of self efficacy is to set a small goal, achieve the goal, and celebrate the goal. Another way is to learn from others. The skill that you're struggling in is to be able to find someone else who does that well. I think YouTube is a great place for that. There's so much good feedback on educational channels and content here. I'm a new YouTuber. I believe I'm good at teaching, but I don't necessarily. And I actually have been teaching online for 10 plus years. But I don't necessarily know how much of that translates to being a YouTuber. Being able to edit videos is an example of a skill that I don't really know how to do. I've kind of been trying, but I haven't actually formally trained. But this week I've been watching videos of other people who've been talking about hacks for editing. So when it comes to teaching, there may be something that you need to do, like work with a specific technology and technology in higher ed is always being updated and revised. So even something that you think you're familiar with and you've used before, I've had it happen where it's been updated and then all of a sudden you are not able to find what you're used. So the processes and systems that you use to do what you want to do with that software, you can no longer do that. I had that happen this semester. But I also know rather than beat my head against the wall to get resources involved. So learning from others, also embracing feedback from people you trust. One of the downsides episode in the future is feedback systems. I myself have really struggled with finding useful feedback. I feel like there's a lot of places where you don't get feedback. There are a lot of people who give you unsolicited and unhelpful feedback. But it's important for you to find people that you trust in your community of supporters and coaches and encouragers, and find out from them what they think your growth areas are, and also find out from them what they see as your strengths. Because I think a lot of times we don't recognize that another way to excel in your career is to really be a go, greatest of all time in what you do well. I don't necessarily have to be the best at everything, but there's some things that I know, I'm going to win at every time I swing. Every time I swing, I'm going to hit. So much for the metaphors. The other thing is being able to embrace even negative feedback from people you trust is an important way to boost your self-efficacy, because what they're going to do if they really are in your corner is they're going to want to see you shine. They're going to tell you what you're doing well, how you can do those things better. They're going to help you create opportunities to do those things better. And they're going to help you figure out what is the strategy that you need to do, or to change your strategy so that the things that are your growth areas, either you have more support when you do them less often, or you just don't do them at all. There are some things in higher education that I think as faculty in particular, and this is also true for administrators, there are things you are responsible for, but if you're the kind of leader that needs to do everything, you're rarely going to shine. So having a team of people who can support you in doing the things that they shine at, that you don't shine at, is another important strategy. So the last thing on the individual list is emotional regulation. It's so important for us to have greater awareness of our emotions, and to recognize and accept our emotions, but also to say, I need to make sure that I'm setting aside time. I'm a believer in morning routines, to process what's going on at the end of my day, at the end of my week, at the end of my month. These processes are going to help us put together resource strategies to be able to level up our attention to the issues that we are concerned about. And so we're not going to be, so for example, if I am struggling, I know a student who struggles with stuttering. And I know that they do that because they have talked about it in writing. But if you're self-conscious about something that you have, something like maybe a stutter, but you're not stuttering all the time, just under stress, when someone brings that to your attention, you are not necessarily thrown off by that, because you're like, oh yeah, it's true that I have this problem, but I don't stutter like I used to stutter. As a child, I'm more confident now, I'm more successful now, and it does happen sometime, but you're not really like fazed by it. And so this is what I mean when I talk about self-efficacy, is as you see yourself growing in that area that is an issue for you, you're going to say, yeah, that one didn't go so well, but I know next time I'm going to do better. I'm going to keep practicing it. And so that's a big part of it. So I just want to also close and talk about, there's also things that institutions can do to support self-efficacy when it comes to the tidal wave of people who are talking about leaving their jobs. There's professional development. There's professional development that actually is going to connect people with mentors. There are mentoring programs that are voluntary, where people who want to mentor and are good at mentoring. Hiring a coach. I'm a big believer in professional coaching. I have hired coaches for a variety of things, starting from the minute I heard that people were paying for help. When you look at the fact that, a year of education is $20, $30, $40,000, if you're struggling with something and you can afford to hire help for that specific skill or strategy, then by all means, you should be doing that. And there's no shame in that, because people may not be telling you that they're doing it, but other people are doing it. And unfortunately, as a woman of color in higher ed, and even before I got to higher ed, I didn't realize that that was even a thing. So, but having open communication with people you trust is really important. With your leadership, I think you can be in a situation where your direct supervisor, if you want to call it that, in your department or in your program may not have the skills that they need to adequately coach you and give you the opportunities you need. So you need to be thinking 360 degrees around the institution and external to the institution, how you can get the information and the communication flow to you that you really need. And then lastly, recognition and rewards. The institution does not necessarily do a good job. I don't know that they've ever done a good job, but now that salaries are more flat and people are really struggling to um, maintain themselves due to inflation, especially in, like I said, public education. And even if you're in a private institution, if they're having challenges with enrollment, they're going to be less resources. There have to be creative ways to be able to recognize, acknowledge, and reward people who are doing all this over and above. Being an educator is being a frontline person, being an admissions person, being a financial aid person, being a student life or student services person, jobs that are not paying jobs. And people are really committed and they're being very intentional, building into the lives of students. And so that is what we need, and we need more of it. And so being able to encourage people through that and to be able to be intentional about building into their careers. Like, what's the next step? What's the career director? Getting to know people and having them feel seen and heard around their career goals is another important way to reward them by giving them those opportunities. So one thing we know for sure is low self-efficacy leads to not only emotional dysregulation, but also general dissatisfaction. And even that, I can say for myself, there have been times when I have felt like, well, no matter what I do, this is going to be an issue because I don't have the support to be able to address this. And if that is the case, it starts looking like I may as well just leave. In my case, my leaving ended up being in the same university, but in a different college in the same university. When you find yourself in a situation where you no longer believe that the system is going to work for you and the feedback that you're getting is unhelpful and you're, it's like a triple threat. You're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. This is not making sense. So as the young people say nowadays, make it make sense. You can't, the math is not mathing. So looking outside your organization for solutions and strategies is super important. So if you'd like to hear more, there's also a case example discussed in the article. I would love to hear your feedback. If there are things that you that resonated with you, I would love for you to leave a comment. I do respond to comments. And I certainly am very grateful for your time for watching this. If you're watching this in the future, please tell me what your thoughts are about self-efficacy. Is this a term you're familiar with? Does it make sense? Where do you see this working in your own life or in the lives of other people, colleagues that you work with, peers that you work with? And thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And I also have another video about a survey that I'm doing to learn more about what this community needs from this channel. So I really appreciate you filling that out. We'll take about 3 minutes. Bye-bye.